The only reason.
All right, my recording is in progress, and Holly's, are you recording, Holly?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to have everybody stay muted. So,
on our website, so you can tell anybody who's looking for it that they'll find it there sometime next week, probably. So welcome to everybody who's found us and joining us today. We're delighted to have you here. This is sponsored by the Holistic Health Community in collaboration with the Morty and Gloria Wolosoff Foundation. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Holistic Health Community, I'm going to put our website on the chat. And we are an organization dedicated to affordable holistic health care for all. And we offer free sessions as well as classes, though the word free is not exactly accurate because we ask you to give us an exchange, either a donation to help us continue our work, or to volunteer with us, or to pay it forward by doing an act of kindness for someone in the greater community. And in that way, passing on what we give to you to others. So we're delighted to have you here today. If you are not on our mailing list, please join us by going onto our website, holistichealthcommunity.org. And we have 1 week of holistic sessions each month, which is coming up the last week in June. So if you would like a session, then do sign up and we will send you a letter announcing who's available for sessions this month. So we're thrilled to have Holly Shelowitz with us here today. Holly is a culinary nutrition counselor and a real food educator. She graduated from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition's professional training program in Manhattan. And since 1999, through her classes and events, she's been inspiring people to eat their greens and get into their kitchens and cook. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Holly. And during the course of Holly's presentation, if you have questions, please type them on chat and I will relay them to Holly. So I'll keep an eye on chat. And so Holly, thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Cornelia. Can everybody hear me all right? Mm-hmm. Yes, thumbs up. Okay, good. Thank you. So I'm going to make some changes to our screen. Okay, so I just made my screen larger, and you can always change that on your screen. If you want to see everybody cooking, then you can just click gallery view. And this way, when I use the spotlight, for those of you that will be watching the recording, you will, you'll only see, nobody else will be on the camera. So to just preserve some anonymity. So, hi everyone, I'm so glad you're here. We had a little interesting Mercury retrograde situation in the beginning. And so we have a menu tonight of 2 different dishes. And what I'll do is give you an overview of how our class will go. And like Cornelia said, anytime that you have a question, type it into the chat and she'll let me know. Now, as it turns out, because there are so few of us right now, as opposed to the 80 people that will eventually make their way on here, we may be able to work it out where if it's, you can easily just unmute and ask a question. If it gets too, if it needs to be more organized, I'll have you do it in the chat. Okay, so we're making 2 different dishes. We're making sauteed greens and mushrooms and your favorite protein, which could be beans, it could be ground chicken, it could be really any protein that you love. Pum food, which I am so excited about this product. And it's just for those of you that haven't seen it yet, it's very much like tofu, but it's made from pumpkin seeds. And that's the only ingredient is pumpkin seeds and water, which is so great. So periodically I'll be looking here, which is where I have my recipes set up. So we are going to start with the greens and mushrooms recipe. So what I like to do whenever I'm cooking, and especially when I'm teaching a class, is I use a sheet pan and I put everything on the sheet pan that I will need for what I'm teaching. And I totally encourage you to do the same. It makes it much easier. So we're just going to start with slicing an onion. And basically the way that these classes work is that I'm literally making everything from scratch, side by side, along with you, so that everybody can see easily how, let's see, can you see my cutting board? Yes, okay. So you can easily see how things are made, literally from start to finish. And I know that in this community, we have so many smart, amazing people that are adept in the kitchen. And then there's also people that are not as comfortable in the kitchen. And so this class is for everyone. So we are going to use onions that I call them like sliced in half moons. So right now I just cut the onion in half, and then I'll start with this one. Looks like, let me just give you a better view of my cutting board. Hang on one second. Okay, that's better. Okay, and so let's make sure everybody is muted. And so Cornelia, if you could help me with that, like people may come on unmuted. And so this way we'll have a nice quiet line. So I'm just slicing the onion in slices like that. And this is what I like to call a half moon. And then, let's see, did I tell you to leave as a half moon? Yes, sliced in half moons. And so, and then we'll just cut the other half. And so why don't you unmute, for those of you that are able to, unmute and tell me what kind of protein you're using so that I can guide you.
I'm using kung fu.
Okay.
I'm using,
Go on.
I'm using white beans.
White beans, okay.
yeah, Great Northern beans, white beans.
Okay, great. So pretty much we are going to add the protein. First, what we will do is saute the onion, and I've decided to use this pan. And so for sauteing, I like to use either olive oil, if it's going to be a low heat, or if it's going to be higher heat, like this might be, it's great to use avocado oil. So I use that one as well. You can also use coconut oil. So I'm just putting a little oil in the pan, which, okay, make sure you can see that. Okay, can you see this pan over here?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so this is one of my favorite kitchen tools, by the way. It's actually made for, it's a pastry cutter, but look at how, it's just so convenient. So into the pan, these onions go. And then you can, for those of you that are using kung fu, I eat this all the time. And so at first I was using it like I would slice it in cubes, you know, in thick cubes or in like a triangle shape, which I really like. Or you can crumble it. So it depends on your texture preference, which way you would like to do it. But for the kung fu, I would use the whole package. The beans, you know what to do. We're just going to add the beans right to it. And then I'm going to use some ground organic chicken, but not yet. And so while the onion and the pan is getting warm, why don't we start prepping our mushrooms? So I have a combo. I have some crimini mushrooms, and then I have some shiitakes. And so the recipe calls for a lot, and it depends on, whoop, lost one. Depends on how much you're making, you know, how many servings. You can always cut either of these recipes in half. And so what I wanted to show you, like sometimes there's some soil that comes on the mushrooms because they're growing very close to the earth. And so I just take a paper towel, just put a little water on it and just go around the mushroom. I thought I got that one, but there's some other little sneaky bits. And so this way it's better than putting it under the water because that makes it really slimy. And we're just going to slice the mushrooms, just like nice thick slices. And if that's not your preference and you want to make them in smaller pieces, this is chef's choice. One of the beautiful things about teaching these classes on Zoom is that you get to do things however you want. I'd love to hear when later on we'll have some time for a little chatting, and I'd love to hear what mushrooms you're using. But we're busy now, we're busy shopping. So I'm just doing I like a hearty slice of a mushroom, so I'm doing the crimini this way. And then for the shiitakes, I'm going to pull the stem out. But I'm going to save those stems. And for those of you who've been coming to my classes, you know that nothing goes to waste in my kitchen. And I really want it to be that way in your kitchen. So that you pull out the stems and then you save them in a stock bag that you keep in your freezer. And you put all the bits and pieces of carrots and celery and shiitake mushrooms that makes such a fantastic stock. I do it all the time. In fact, the stock that I'm using today for this dish is a homemade stock. I don't buy stock. And I really recommend doing that. And it feels so good to be minimizing waste in your kitchen. So again, I'm making nice thick slices. Let's see how this is. So at this point, I think if you have questions, you could just unmute and ask away. Okay. Great. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, maybe a few more. And again, this particular recipe has so much flexibility. Any kind of greens you like, any kind of mushrooms that you like. So onions are looking good. I want to show you what they look like. They're beginning to brown. They're not quite, just a little bit browning. And then now I'm going to add the mushrooms. And if you actually, for any of you who are using ground chicken, I'm going to actually suggest that you add the chicken first and then add the mushrooms. For those of you that are using beans or pumpu, you can add the mushroom and the protein at the same time. So I'm just gonna go grab my chicken from the fridge.
I have a quick question because your recipe says ginger.
Yeah.
Where do we put the ginger in?
Good question. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, now is a good time to do that. So I guess I'll wait on the person. Okay, so we're gonna grate the ginger. Thank you to whoever asked that. Was that Miriam?
Yes.
Thank you, love.
No, oh, not Miriam, no.
What's that?
But I do have a question. I don't have the recipe in front of me, and I didn't measure out my beans. How much?
Oh.
it's been?
1.5 cups of cooked
Thank you.
white beans.
Thank you.
And then thanks to whoever caught the ginger. So we are going to use a thumb-sized piece of ginger, which of course can be relative, right? This is quite a large piece. I'm probably not going to grate the entire thing. And I love this grater. It's a thick microplane. And I'm going to do this right over the pan. And I'll bring the pan a little closer so you can see what that looks like. Like that. Always good to check in. Oh, goodness. All right, so. I'm also in the tiniest kitchen I have ever had in my entire life. And it's quite hilarious. Okay, so I'm just gonna grate the ginger right into the pan. And for those of you that don't have a grater like this, you can use a box grater on the like medium hole. You can also chop it really fine, but ginger has such a lovely, wonderful bite that I find it better to grate it.
You don't peel the ginger?
I don't. I wash it, but I don't peel it. And again, that's also chef's choice. You can absolutely peel it, but it's like anytime you can save a step. I love that. There's no, you can't tell in any way. There's no texture difference or anything. So
Good to
yeah.
know. Here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have more people been able to get on? Cornelia, how many of us have arrived?
We have 15 now.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome, welcome.
Garlic now too?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so the ginger is in. Thank you for that. Okay. And I like to use the most minimal amount of oil as possible. So there's no need for your sautés to ever be swimming in oil. So, and the mushrooms are actually going to add some water, you know, as mushrooms release their water. So for those of you who are using ground chicken, this is the time to add that. And then for those of you that are using beans or pumpkin or tofu, you can wait a moment and we'll all add the mushrooms and your protein together. And let's everybody make sure you're muted. And so now that I'm using some animal protein, I'm switching from a wood spatula to metal. Because wood is porous. And so we don't want to have, any bacteria. So I just want to give the chicken, and if you're using animal protein, you just want to give it a bit of a head start in the saute. You can also use ground beef in this recipe as well. Really, any nice protein will do. And now the chicken is by no means cooked, fully cooked, but now we can now you can add your mushrooms and your protein, and then I will add a little bit more of that ginger too. Let's see. So I can see some of you. I hope it's all going well. And then when you add the mushrooms and your protein, we're going to add a little bit of whatever you're using for your soy sauce. And if you need to add a little bit more oil, you certainly can. And then we'll prep our greens while the protein is cooking. So I'm adding a little soy sauce in here. Good. Checking in on all of you. Okay, some of you I can see. And remember, if at any time you have a question, just feel free to unmute and ask away. Okay, so now
How much soy? How much soy sauce, Sally? Sorry,
soy sauce is
just don't want to put too.
for total, we're going to use maybe about 3 tablespoons, but that's a lot. So start with a few drizzles. And then when we add the greens, we'll add another few drizzles. So it doesn't have to be it should never be like tasting too salty. This is really to add body and flavor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to just mix in your protein and the mushrooms. And then the next thing we'll do is prep our greens. And actually, I'm going to put this other package of chicken back in the fridge. Okay, so I have this gorgeous cow. It's from Solid Ground Farm. Really beautiful. Look at that. So beautiful. So depending on what I'm making, sometimes I will remove the stem. Other times I will, now this stem is pretty thick. And so, so I may, let's just, yeah, it's fine. Like sometimes when they're really thick, you can't even eat them. And so what I'll do is I'm going to show you a cut called a Chiffonade cut. And so I'm going to just remove the bottom stem, but not don't throw those out. Either save them for your stock bag, or sometimes I will often, like I'm just taking off the end, saute them tomorrow morning in my veggie pumfu stir fry that I eat for breakfast. So, and if you wanted to take the stems out, if it's easier or if they're too hard to chew, you would just hold it like this and just remove the stem like that and save that stem. So you know, again, chef's choice on that. So these stems, you know, a lot of fiber in there. And greens of any kind is is truly a superfood. And let me explain what I'm doing. So you can pile, like, let's say, depending on how big your greens are, let's say I have like 3 leaves right here piled, one on top of each other. And now I'm going to roll them. So it's all one roll. You can see that, I think. And so I'm going to take my knife, and of course, I am a fan of having your knives be really sharp, and do an easy cut like this. And because we are using the stem and we don't want those pieces to be too big, you want to do really thin cuts. And so you can see that like really thin. And that makes the greens much more, they'll get softer faster, and then it's not going to be too cumbersome if someone gets a bite of the stem. I'm just going to fix this table a little. There we go. And if anybody, does anybody have any questions at this moment?
Holly, I do. It looks like your pan is uncovered. And
Yes.
I think the recipe says to cover it. Does it?
Yeah, the greens aren't in yet, so we will cover after the greens. Thanks for asking. And
So
again, what's that?
it does say cover to let the mushrooms sweat
Oh, okay, thank you.
better.
You can do it either way. I forgot to put the cover on. Usually I put it on after the greens, but you know, I make this so often that I do it differently every time. So I'm now taking the greens and bringing them over to my pan. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing again with the rest of this kale. And so I'll remove the bottom part of the stem, but save that for another time. What kind of greens is everybody using? Are everybody using?
I use spinach.
The what? What kind of greens?
Swiss chard and kale.
Nice.
Swiss chard and bok choy and a little spinach.
Great, a nice combo. So now again, a nice thin cut. I love teaching this particular recipe again because you can really use what you've got, which we want. And so as I'm cutting, I'm also grabbing it to make sure that it's staying together at the end. And you want to give the pan a saute, stir, so nothing's burning. Smells amazing in here. And then we'll add a little splash of stock to help it all cook. And then we'll take a moment and just talk about all of the immune boosting properties of all of these ingredients. So next batch of greens going in. Don't have to use all of those there. You know, and like I encourage everyone when you're cooking to cook for more than 2 meals, right? So even if you're single, or if no matter how many people are in your family, and if it's you're cooking for yourself like I do, like make your time in the kitchen really pay off. And it's really helpful. So then like now for the next few days, I'm going to have these beautiful sauteed greens and mushrooms in my fridge. I can easily warm them up and it's a great meal, or I can eat it cold if it's, you know, if it's a super hot day. So let's see. Okay, so now we're going to add the stock. I have more than a cup here. And this is homemade veggie stock from all scraps, just like what you can do. So I'm going to add, and this really helps to create a nice sauce. And you notice I didn't add more soy sauce yet because again, I don't want this to end up being salty. We really want that for flavor. And so, so depending on how much soy sauce you add at the first go, you can do a quick drizzle for the second one. But again, you know, we don't want this to be salty. So I would always err on using less, and then you can always increase. And now you're just stirring everything together so that everything is really well incorporated. And now you can cover it if you have not covered it already.
How much broth, Holly? Says half a cup, no?
It says half cup, yeah. So it's really, it's like a splash so that you don't have to keep adding more oil. That's why, you know, another reason why we're using the stock. So I'm just going to grab my lid. So whenever I am teaching or doing a lot of elements at the same time, I always do a recipe check just to make sure that everything that I want to be in the pan is in the pan. And let's just see, I'm going to add another splash of stock. Oh, so onion, ginger, protein, greens, mushrooms, stock, oil, and then more soy sauce. And so eventually we will add some, just like we'll top it with some tahini. But we're going to make another dish. So I like to kind of save tahini for a drizzle at the end. Do you guys like tahini? And of course, you don't have to use it, of course. For a while there, the High Falls Food Co-op had this amazing Lebanese tahini. Maybe they've gotten it in again, but the last time I asked, the person who had been doing the ordering left the co-op, and I guess they couldn't figure out, where to buy that Lebanese tahini. And oh, it was like the most amazing tahini I have ever tasted. Does anyone know if it's back in action?
It's in. It's in.
It's
I bought it
in.
today. I can buy you one and save it for you. You know,
That would be great.
and maybe we can meet each other at the market next week.
That would be terrific, Miriam. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll put it on my.
Okay. Yeah, like one of these size. Awesome.
What is the tahini you're saying? The Lebanese can you show us? Or
What's that?
If someone has the bottle just to show us so we can look for that
No,
too.
it's in the bulk. It's in the bulk.
Ah.
department. And so there, it used to be that you can pack it yourself. Now I think they've changed things. And so it's basically raw tahini. Like most tahini that you find is roasted, and it's delicious. But one time I tasted them raw, and it was, I mean, it's like eating sesame seeds. It's like so fresh, and it's lighter, I find.
And which co-op do they have?
It's at the High Falls Food Co-op on
Yeah, I know where it is.
13. Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a time, if you've used chicken, then you want to make sure, of course, that it's totally cooked through. And you can use your spatula to check. Usually the ground chicken cooks very quickly, but this is a good time to give a little taste test and see if you want more soy sauce or is it just right. That's great. And what I want is we also because there is stock in there, it helps to break down the greens so they're not super chewy. Okay, and then you can decide, I am literally at the bottom of the barrel here. You can decide if you want to add your tahini now and stir it all in, or if you want to drizzle it right before eating. I tend to do it that way. But I want this to cook a little bit more. And while that's happening, we can start shifting gears and getting ready for the second dish. Are we in about the same place? Is everybody cooked or cooking? Okay, so I'm going to switch. Everyone make sure you're muted. I hate saying that. Okay, so the first thing we will do, so everyone's ready to shift gears. We're going to shift to the next recipe. So we're going to pull out all of our fresh herbs. So chimichurri sauce is a delicious herby kind of sauce that you can top really on anything. Mushrooms, on your vegetables, on cooked meat, on fish or shrimp. It's just got this universal flavor and lots of immune boosting. So we're going to prepare our fresh herbs, which again, it can be chef's choice. So we're going to chop some parsley, cilantro, and I like saying it the way Jamie Oliver says, oregano. Just love him. And I love the way he says that. And so it's a 1/4 cup of, and these are all rough, you don't have to measure exactly, but 1/4 cup of chopped flat leaf parsley, about 2 tablespoons or more if you love cilantro, or less if you don't. and 2 tablespoons of fresh oregano. Which, I was able to pick at the farm the other day. So this sauce is so wonderful, and I wanted to add a lacto-fermented condiment to it, which really helps with digestion. So we're really going to make this sauce and then set it aside, and then we will work with the cauliflower. And let's make sure that you don't forget about your saute, and it should be nice and ready now. So I'm going to turn my heat off and then start to prep the herbs. So whenever I have fresh herbs, I keep them in a jar. You can see with a little water in the bottom. This is the parsley, and it just it keeps them fresh longer. It's interesting. I did this with basil, and like it was pooped in a day. That was fun. Okay, so I'm going to take a 1/4 cup of parsley. And then, you know, honestly, I love cilantro. I know that not everybody feels that way, but I'll just talk for a moment about the immune boosting properties of parsley. So we want to chop our herbs really fine, which is this, I'm chopping the parsley, and I even, you know, I'm including the stems in here. And because we're not cooking or blending or pureeing this, I'm going to go back over this again. Make sure you can actually see my board. Okay, I'm going to go over this again to make it finer. Because parsley, it can be a little tough. And so it adds this bright, fresh flavor. And so many minerals in parsley. If you know, eat your garnish. If you are dining out, what I have said for many years is eat your garnish. So this has this is nice and fine. Bowl ready for that. This. And so a chimichurri tends to have like lots of herbs, a little bit of vinegar to kind of give it some bite. You can also use lemon. Here I'm using, in a bit, we'll use both. We'll use lemon and lemon zest. Oh, this started to dry a little. Okay, so this is the oregano. It's, I guess I will chop. And I'm going to save these stems for what? For what? For what? For the stuff. All right. And you can certainly use dried herbs for this, but the fresh really has incredible flavor. It's a different kind of flavor when you're using dried oregano versus fresh. This is a little bit of each. So I'm just going to do a little, yeah. So fresh herbs are incredible, especially these, antiviral, antibacterial, especially oregano. The cilantro is a natural, it naturally moves mercury out of the body. It is really helpful at detoxifying your body. So anytime you can add cilantro to your smoothies, you know, to soup at the end where you serve your soup and then you add some fresh cilantro, that's really wonderful. So I'm adding that to the bowl. So what do we got? Parsley. Okay, cilantro. I'm gonna add a lot. So it only says 2 tablespoons, but I think I'm gonna add a little bit more because I love it. And so remember, if you have not turned off your burner, give it a stir, and it should be done now, and you can keep it covered and make sure it's off. So again, I'm doing a fine chop. And the best way to clean cilantro is to take the whole bunch and dunk it in some water. And because cilantro grows so close to the beautiful earth, it will often have like sand or soil in it. And so we want, it's not palatable when you get little pieces of grit in your herbs. So you want to dunk it a few times. And this way, it leaves all the grit and the sand in the bowl. So the other thing is that I use the stems, right? So I'll either juice these, or I'll add them to smoothies, or I'll chop them really fine and add them to the end of my soup. They have a really nice crunch. And again, you want to just make sure that all the soil has been removed. So cilantro in there. Oh, so when I email everybody the recording and we do it, I will also email an updated version of this recipe. I kept tweaking it and changing it, and I ended up sending out the second to last version. So there are some ingredients in the method that are not part of the recipe. However, let's say you couldn't find sauerkraut or pickles. You can use a little mustard instead. So you would still get that like piquant or like sour tart flavor. So mustard is a good swap, although mustard is not lacto-fermented. It will certainly work flavor-wise.
What about capers, Holly?
Oh, capers that's a great idea. Yeah, that would work. Super salty, so I wouldn't use, let's see, what would I call for? Three tablespoons. So I wouldn't use 3 tablespoons of capers, but that would be a delicious addition, and I would chop them so that you don't get a whole one in your mouth. But that sounds really good, actually. Okay, so now, and then the garlic. I like to use a garlic press when I am making a dressing that where somebody could get, the garlic on their food. When it's not being cooked, the garlic, of course, has that wonderful bite. I'm actually using fresh, young garlic, which is exciting, from solid ground. So, of course, at our farmers markets, this is such an exciting time. And it's so interesting using young garlic, peeling off the skin. So it's 1 garlic clove minced. I may end up using 2, we'll see. And it's interesting. This is young garlic. I wonder if it will go through the press because it's soft. Let's see. Yes. So here's why I love using a garlic press. So it's like, oh, I know the light is very strong in here right now because it's my window behind the computer is a west facing window. So, oh, there we go. So you can see it's like very fine. And then I am going to use a second one just because that other one was kind of small. And so if you're not using a garlic press, you just want to make sure that you chop that garlic super fine. So in case you get a nice juicy piece, it's not going to set your mouth on fire. Okay, sauerkraut. So when I'm not making it myself, my absolute favorite brand is, oops, I know there's a big reflection, is Hawthorne Valley Farm. And all of our stores up here sell this. And I bought the one with caraway seeds. You get plain. And really, this is just to add some digestive power. It's really helpful for building a healthy gut microbiome. It helps with digestion. And anything with that nice tart flavor gets your juices flowing, literally. So what I'm doing, oh, there's juniper berries in this one. Okay, I'm gonna keep those in the jar. Love that. Oh man, love it. Keep one. So good. Wow. And so I didn't put it right in the bowl because I want to chop this a bit. Just to make it the pieces smaller.
How much, Polly, please?
What's that?
How much of the cabbage, of the sauerkraut?
3 tablespoons.
Thank you so much.
That's going in. So let's say, like I said, let's say you weren't going to use sauerkraut, or you couldn't find it. And mustard, pickles, capers. That was a good idea about the capers. So a word on lacto-fermented sauerkraut pickles. When you want them to be the healthiest possible, you want to buy them lacto or make them lacto-fermented, which means it doesn't mean that there's dairy in it. It means that it's a natural process of fermentation that will that creates all of this beneficial enzymes and beneficial bacteria. And it also has, it activates the vitamin C that's in cabbage. So it's a lot more available for us to absorb. And so if you buy sauerkraut or pickles that are on the shelf, they taste good, but they have very little nutritional benefit. So go for your packaged. Just want to take a bite of this. It's hard to work with it and not eat it. It's like super tart. And when we're eating things like this, it literally supports your liver, supports your gallbladder, supports digestion. Such an important food. That is good. Okay, so let's see what else needs to go in here. So now this is really like the sauce. So you have a few options. We're going to add some olive oil. And then you can either add apple cider vinegar or lemon juice. Let me just see how I wrote this up. And don't worry, I'm going to update this so it's crystal clear. Sprinkle with lemon zest, stir in. Okay, so this, like the chimichurri is also called salsa verde, which means a green salsa. And so chef's choice, you can juice a lemon and add that in there, or you can use some apple cider vinegar. Again, both with that like really tart flavor. Let's see. Okay, so let's zest our lemon now, so it's ready for later. And a lot of my recipes call for lemon zest, because I like the brightness and the amazing flavor that it provides. I'm just gonna clear the decks here with all of my, I have a pile, a pile of what's going into my stock bag. But I'm gonna move it out of the way here. And so now I am going to grab my zester again. And if you use a microplane, again, I use like a nice wide one, and the holes are pretty large because I often grate ginger and lemon and sometimes Parmesan. And so I don't like the thin, long microplane that is very common. Most people have those. I prefer that one. I'm just getting another bowl.
Holly, is the lemon instead of apple cider, or are they both?
Say it again.
Is the lemon instead of apple cider, or are we using both?
You can use lemon juice or apple cider vinegar. And the zest is part of the recipe, but you don't have to if you don't feel like doing it or if you don't have a zester. But the zest, I'm keeping separate from here, and I haven't added the oil to this yet or any salt. So I'm just going to zest, let's see how much. About a half teaspoon. So this happens to be a pretty large lemon. And when you're zesting, and again, you can use the small blade, the small, grating on your box grater if you want. And so you want to, when you're zesting, if you notice, I just keep moving the lemon around. And I don't go too far into the deep white part because that is bitter. So this is a huge lemon, so I won't even use the whole thing. Okay. So I'm going to set this aside. And then and now you can add the olive oil. And so it calls for a 1/4 cup, which is a lot, but you're drizzling it on, four portions, basically. You can always use less if you prefer. So I'm just covering the herbs and the sauerkraut, and just give it a bit of a stir. I don't want it not swimming in oil. It's moist and it's going to impart its delicious flavor. Oh, I'm literally salivating. And then I'm thinking, do I want a lemony chimichurri or a vinegar chimichurri? So I suppose if you're using if you're using capers or mustard, then I guess really lemon or vinegar could work in both situations. So I may go for the lemon today, but I'll decide that in a little while. So I'm just going to set this aside so it's out of the way. And then clear the deck. Oh, I didn't add salt to that. That's important. So we're going to add a few pinches of salt to this. And I have two different kinds of salt here. I have Himalayan salt in here. And then I also really love Herbamare. It's just this wonderful herbal salt that's just sea salt with herbs in it. So I'm just going to add like a generous pinch. And again, you don't want anything to be overly salty. We really are adding salt for flavor. And we'll see, when I add lemon juice to this, I may end up adding a bit more olive oil because I did use more of the cilantro. Oh my God, I'm very excited to do this. All right, so now we are going to shift. Let me just clear everything out of the way. What we want to do next is clear your cutting board. Even though everything on there is delicious. Okay, so here is the, cross our fingers, the art of cutting a cauliflower so that it stays, so that your steak stays whole and connected. So this is a gorgeous cauliflower. First thing I'm going to do is just pull the greens off, and these are totally edible. Any way that you would use bok choy, you can use this. It's nice and crispy. So I'm doing this by hand, and I may end up using the knife, but I want to have a little more control because we want to end up still having the core, because that's going to literally keep the cauliflower together. And again, for those of you who are listening to the recording, we had a Zoom link issue that I don't know how or why it happened. And I'm so glad that those of you who made it here are here, and those of you who are listening to the recording are cooking along with us all. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut a little bit of this core because it's pretty thick, as you can see, but that is literally the anchor to this plant. So I don't want to cut it off because, you know, I don't want to go deep because that's going to help us to make this cauliflower steak. So just know that sometimes when you cut your cauliflower, it may not stay as a whole steak. Don't worry. This dish is delicious, even if it ends up being cauliflower parts instead of the steak. So I'm just going to shift. And then I'm going to go for a cast iron for this one because it really has, it enables us to have such a great caramelization. Let me just see how I break this up. Okay, so before we go on, I just want to give you an overview. So we are going to slice the cauliflower into thick steak. For this one, you can use coconut oil or avocado oil or even olive oil, but we're going kind of on a higher heat. So I would not use olive oil. If you do have those other options, that's better. I'm going to grab my coconut oil. All right. I buy in large quantity because I also use this in the skincare classes. All right, so the core is still attached, you can see. And so in the beginning, this will fall apart, as you can see, and that's okay. The next one, I'm going to make, it's a little bright in here. So this one is about a 1/2 inch. Maybe I should do a little less because the thicker it is, the longer it takes to cook. And I really love cauliflower where it gets like crispy on the bottom, and then it's a little tender, but still has some chew. So hoping for the best. Okay. So you can see some parts fell off, and that's fine. I kind of like when that happens in class. So, oh, they all fell apart. That's fine too. So this can all be used in this recipe. It still has a flat bottom. And let's see if our next one works even better. Okay.
Is it okay if it has a few brown spots?
If it's on if the brown spots are on the florets, I tend to just shave them off with a knife if you can.
Thank you.
Yeah. So here we have a cauliflower steak. So we've got one. You're gonna see. And again, don't worry if yours fall apart. Same recipe, you do it the same exact way. Okay, I'm gonna do another one. Okay, great. So this stayed together really nicely. I have to, now that the light has changed direction, I have to get another cover for that window. Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go. So you can see it's about, what is it? Like, it's more than a ½ inch. You can't go too thin because it will definitely fall apart. But then all the other parts can be used. Cauliflower rice. So I've got 3 steaks that held themselves together. And so the next thing I will do, let me just make sure I'm telling you the right way. We're gonna just warm our coconut oil. And you wanna ideally do this in a non-stick skillet, not like a Teflon skillet. But cast iron is the best, most natural non-stick surface. I also have, oh, it's not here. I have another pan that's a ceramic bottom. And ceramic pans are really good. You just cannot you can't have high heat when you use a ceramic pan because it really can remove the coating. Okay. So it takes a couple minutes for a cast iron skillet to warm up. So I'm going to the coconut oil ready. Right. So we can season each steak with a couple pinches of salt. For this one, I'm going to use the herb Americ because it's just got such a nice flavor. And I'm using very little. It's really just like the equivalent of a few dashes. And then when I put it in the pan, I will season the other side. A little pepper. That's optional. For years, I never used pepper. So the other thing about making these while our oil is, and while our pots and oil are warming up, is every piece of the cauliflower needs to be touching the surface of the pan. So if they're on top of each other, they're not going to get that nice caramelized experience. And so I'm putting enough oil in here. It's certainly not deep frying it. How much oil did I call for? Oh, maybe that's another adjustment I have to make. So you want to just add probably about a teaspoon of oil to start. And then I'll show you. Just gonna add right onto the surface, and then I'm going to add the other one. And so most pots will only be able to make two at once. So I'm going to season the other side now that we can. And I don't know if I say to cover this, do I? Covered, yes. So we want to cover it because it's going to help it cook, because that's a pretty thick steak. Now, when you are when it's not the heat of summer, you can also absolutely use your oven for this dish. But I am, even though I have AC cranking here, I am not heating up my oven. Although we're about to have some nice cool nights and cooler days, it's all good. Hudson Valley, spring, summer, it's so wonderful. Did anybody wake up to watch the eclipse this morning? Normally, I would be out there photographing it, watching it, but not when I'm teaching a class on the same night in terms of being up and out at 5:30 a.m. Sleep is so important to me, and it's such an essential part of health and well-being. And it's interesting, while this cauliflower is cooking, one of the gifts that has happened for me since I had Lyme, and I had it in a pretty wicked way. And one of the gifts of having it is that now, obviously, I'm a nutritionist, I'm a healthy chef, and I've been teaching and counseling for many, many years. And one of the gifts of Lyme, it took me a long time to call it a gift. But one of the gifts of Lyme is that it really, I really has taken my personal self-care to a whole new level. And there are certainly nights that I go to sleep later than I would like. And then I build in rest part times during the day, or I promise myself that like the next evening, it's back to being in bed nice and early, because I still wake up early no matter what time I go to sleep. So, and I am like, I'm an 8 to 9 hour, love my sleep. And I don't know, have you all noticed, or do you experience where when you go to sleep, let's say before 10, that the quality of your sleep is different as opposed to, let's say you go to sleep at midnight? I'd love to hear, if you have a minute, I know you're cooking, but I'd love to hear your experience of that. Like, it's very clear for me. It's been that way for years. Like, sometimes it's hard to go to bed early because I am so excited about life and I have so much going on and I have, more that I want to do. And so to just like take my time to just wind down at the end of the day into the evening and have like practices that help me to just like quiet my mind and body. And so I wonder, have you experienced that, where that the quality of your sleep differs depending on what time you go to sleep? We'd love to hear.
Yeah, this is Tina. So I'm not on screen. Yeah, definitely. I rarely get to sleep before midnight, but if I do, or even at midnight, my sleep is better than later than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I don't get to sleep till 1:30, 2 a.m., Yeah.
And then are you able to sleep later, or do you still wake up at the same time?
No, I wake up at all different hours. Sometimes I can't, sometimes if I get up to go to the bathroom, I can't get back to sleep, but sometimes I sleep through the night, which is a miracle and wonderful.
Oh.
And sometimes I get up once and then get back to sleep and wake up at usually either 7 or 8 or sometimes later, Yeah, it really varies. And I've been trying to stabilize it for years and have not been able to.
Yeah. I understand. I'm about to flip it. And I'll show you what it looks like. Oh man, it looks gorgeous. And I'm actually going to add just a little bit of oil to the pan. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So it's nice and browning on that side. I'm going to add a little bit of oil just so it doesn't burn. And then we could add like a splash of stock. And you don't want this to be swimming in liquid. You want just a quick splash, and it's really just to help steam the inside. Where's the stock? I had it. There. So it's going to make a nice, let me just see what I tell you to do in here. Okay. So I'm just going to do it on the camera so you can see it. So now it's like caramelizing. Just a few splashes. And now I will, now I'm just going to cover it. So it keeps cooking. So amazing. And basically we want to like let it simmer on its own. And we're just going to use a fork to see if the fork goes in all the way, if it's fork tender. Just want to see what I can do about this window. It's so beautiful and sunny, but the reflection is a lot.
How high is the heat now?
Well, it's on, I would say medium. My pan got very hot, so I just turned it down a little bit and then still kept it on medium. You know, so it should be like it's simmering. Yeah, I'm gonna add a little more salt to it. Now I've done these lots of different ways. If you love curry, it's really nice to sprinkle a little curry on top, squeeze some fresh lemon, add a little salt. It's so good. So good, so good.
I missed what you were gonna put the curry or the lemon juice on what? On the cauliflower?
On the cauliflower, yeah. I mean, that's just not for this recipe, but it's another option for, you know, another way to prepare it. Okay, so we're pretty much at the end, and we are going to just, I don't mean at the end of class, like at the end of this cooking, and then what we'll do is, let me get organized here. Cauliflower can be a bit of a mess hazard, right? It's okay. So I'm going to take our chimichurri and salsa verde, chimichurri, interchangeable words. So this is a very big lemon. So I'm just going to, so here's the moment where you can decide, do you want vinegar in your chimichurri or do you want lemon juice? What's everybody doing?
I did a little bit of both.
Ah, nice. Where are you from?
Originally from Brazil.
Brazil. So in Brazil, what is the, is it also chimichurri?
No, we don't. You know, we do like sauces like this, but not chimichurri. No.
So, but is there a sauce that goes on the steak? I was in Brazil and not remembering, like, there's like a similar kind of thing where there's like this really herby kind of
No,
sauce.
like Brazil, depending the area that you were,
Ah,
is very different. If you were in the northeastern part of Brazil, it's more like African descent. So you would
right.
have cilantro and lemon and
I was in
also,
Sao Paulo, so it was the other side, right?
São Paulo is more like the south of Brazil. In São Paulo, you would have, like in Rio, everything,
Yeah.
like all different cultures.
But there was always like these little kinds of like condiments.
They would do like this, like with parsley, onions, and olive oil, and you know, they would call what they would call that's funny. Sometimes things go through my head that I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember it either. Not to worry.
No, yeah, they use even a little tomato in it, like
Oh, that's nice. So it's kind of like a
very
salsa.
yeah.
Nice. Meanwhile, is anybody else salivating like I am right now? So I'm going to add some. What's
Vinaigrette.
that?
They call vinaigrette because they use like vinegar a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and who else? Who's using what? Vinegar or lemon? Would love to hear.
I'm going to use lemon. I was going to use vinegar, but then I thought about the sauerkraut in the other dish. So I thought lemon might be a nice balance.
I like that, Miriam.
Thank you.
Who else? What's everybody using? Kate, what are you going to use? Or anybody else? I can't see everyone's names here.
Lemon.
Lemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go for lemon. This is another tool that I literally use every day, numerous times a day. It's a great workout. And then, by the way, save your lemon and put it into your water. So like, this is so gigantic. Probably if I cut this, because it was so thick, I'm just going to remove the seeds. I'm going to give it another go in here. I'm going to cut it in half and see if I can get some more juice out of that. A little bit. And then it goes right into my water jug. And so again, every single ingredient in all of these recipes are totally immune boosting. Okay. So I'm going to do like, so I'm going to ask you to taste the sauce. You always want to taste to see if it needs more salt. We didn't add pepper to it yet. I only put a little dash. My salivary glands are ready. It's like, I know what this is going to taste like and it's going to be good. Now, because there's sauerkraut, oh, that's probably why I didn't call for salt. That's why. Because there's sauerkraut or pickles, one of the ingredients in one of the important ingredients in lacto-fermentation is salt. Choose the other side. So, so it does not need any more salt. You know, it's a big fat lemon, but like there's not a whole lot of action happening here. Okay.
It really is delicious. I never did the chimichurri like this.
Oh, I'm so glad.
So
Great.
good.
It's just like such a simple, and you can add lemon zest to this. So I'm just going to go grab a plate. And so our next step is to, we're going to plate it. So we'll put one piece of the cauliflower. Let's just make sure it's cooked actually. So we want to just take a fork and see what the texture is. Oh yeah, it's going right through. This is ready to go. And so again, it's chef's choice. If you like it a little crunchy, I happen to really like that. But I like the outsides, you know, nice and caramelized. So I'm going to grab a plate and so pretty. Wow. There's something just so like lovely and simple about,
Gorgeous.
right?
Yeah, it's like a tree.
Yeah. And so you don't have to add any more salt to it because either, you know, the mustard or the lacto-fermented fruit veggies are quite salty. So I'm going to add a little of the lemon zest directly on. So pretty. Lemon zest is such a game changer for flavor. And I guess I'll save the rest of this for the other one, but you can also add lemon zest right into your chimichurri. And then let's revisit the first dish. Let's see if it needs reheating. It's still nice and warm thanks to the temperature. And again, do another taste test. Let's see, does it need anything? We're going to add some tahini to it. Nice and simple. I feel like the tahini, what it does to that dish is it makes it creamy and light. There's a lot of oil in this tahini, so I'm going to dump that. That's so good. So like I said, I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but how much tahini did I say? 2 tablespoons. So normally, you know, like how like tahini, when it's at the bottom, it's kind of like the bottom of the almond butter or peanut butter. It gets a little firm. I prefer it a little more pourable, but because the greens are hot, I'm going to add this and then stir it in. So if that ever happens, where you're at the bottom of your barrel and it gets more firm, that's when it's a really good time either to cook with it, like so then it'll melt it down, or use it in a dressing and put it in your blender. So don't let that go to waste. So I'm just mixing it up in here to break it down a bit. And then, while that's happening, the moment we've all been waiting for, I'm going to add some of this chimichurri, which is just flavor and nutrition. Like this is just, you know, this will go beautifully on anything and everything. Looks like. I'll take a quick photo of that. I'll send that out in the email where I okay. When I send the email out to everybody. Oh gosh. Okay.
Holly, did we ever use the garlic? I missed a step maybe.
Yeah, we put the garlic in this chimichurri. Remember, I used the garlic crust.
That's right. Thank you.
Listen, I could easily have missed it, so it's always good to ask because, you know, when I'm teaching and talking, but we did do it. So
I'm
now
chewing
I'm
gum.
adding the greens to my plate. And tahini has melted a bit. And there we have this gorgeous, yummy, completely immune boosting in every single bite, every single ingredient. I'm so happy. I cannot wait to eat this. We should all take a bite together. Oh, you know what? I didn't end up tasting the sauce yet again. Oh my God. Wow. Okay, that's crazy good. Oh my God. It's so good. I love tasting the oregano, a little bit of like the tart sauerkraut, the parsley and cilantro, the lemon. I love it with lemon, and I think it's probably amazing with the, in fact, it is amazing with the vinegar as well. That's usually how I do this one. I would love to hear from you guys. Are you tasting yours? Did you? So good.
I have a question about how you keep the.
Can you speak a little louder?
How's this? Is this better?
Yeah.
I have a question about how you keep your parsley, cilantro, etc. in water. Do you keep them in water outside the fridge or in the fridge?
You know, I experiment with both ways. I think if it's going to be more than a day, I'll keep it that way in the fridge. And sometimes I'll even put a plastic bag on top. I see somebody's putting something in the chat, but I can't see what it says.
They're saying they have to go, but it was excellent. Sorry to go.
Ah, thank you. Enjoy your evening. So glad you made it. So I would love to hear from anyone else who's tasting their dinner, even if you're sharing it with somebody else in a little while.
It's delicious. I'm so happy to be here with you. You are like such a joy too. I love the way you cook and the way you experiment and the way you are free to teach. And you know, it's a joy.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fabulous. It's fabulous.
Yes.
I'm so glad.
I've never been able to do the cauliflower steaks. This was
Oh,
the
Donna,
first
I'm so happy.
time. And it really caramelized. I put in, a little more liquid so it would cook through, because Rob really likes the cauliflower cooked through. He doesn't like it crunchy.
Yeah.
And everything, and the tahini and the greens. So you gave me so many ideas. I love to cook.
Yes,
And,
I know.
so you gave me a lot of ideas, and I
Oh,
really appreciate it.
You're I'm
terrific.
so excited to hear
Very
that.
delicious. And, Zoom is not easy, to get going. But,
Yeah, I mean,
it went really well. And then to have that at the beginning was so challenging. Oh my gosh, to pull yourself together. So thanks so much. I'm going to have to go. I go on a Zoom retreat tonight. So I have
amazing.
to. Yeah. So
Okay,
thank
Donna,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye,
Thank
Donna.
you, everybody. Hi,
Bye,
Mary.
Donna.
and
Hugs,
Therese,
kisses.
Cornelia.
All
Zoom
right.
is so nice in some ways.
Right, like it's just beautiful. Like we're in each other's kitchens right now. It's so
Which
amazing.
we couldn't do that in person.
Right.
I missed a step or missed a direction and didn't know what to put my tahini on. And since I've been such a nudge tonight, I said, oh, well, I'll just put it over the veggies. And then I thought, I think she meant that for the cauliflower, but it's great on either one.
No, it's supposed to be in the greens. You did it right.
The greens are amazing. Everything, and the chimichurri, the whole thing.
I'm so happy. Brother Louis, I haven't heard a word from you. Now I can see you. Are you able to unmute and tell me how you're doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Everything is delicious. This was really neat. Thank you.
I'm so delighted. So glad. And for those of you that are watching, I hope that that you'll feel inspired to prepare this dish. Does anybody have any questions? All right, I'm going to stop the recording while we all dine. So I'm going to just